Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking something absolutely crucial, a concept that literally sits at the very heart of human interaction. We're talking about the fundamental dynamics of making a request. Okay, let's dive into this. Just think for a second about how much of our daily lives, our careers, even our relationships completely hinge on our ability to just ask for what we need. It's the engine of progress, right? Innovation, collaboration, the whole shebang. But honestly, despite it being an absolute necessity, it's something we kind of approach with immense hesitation. So, we're going to unpack the mechanics behind this everyday interaction, strip away all that mystery, and reveal exactly what happens when we put a request out there into the universe. Let's get right to it.
But hey, before we get into the strict nuts and bolts mechanics of a request, we really need to address a feeling that, let's face it, we all know way too well. Why is asking so terrifying? Seriously. Whether it's asking a senior colleague to review some complex project, begging for a vital budget increase for your department, or, even just asking a buddy for a massive favor, there's almost always this visceral physiological response. Your heart starts racing, your palms get all sweaty. Suddenly you're second-guessing the validity of your entire life's work, and that familiar pang of imposter syndrome just starts creeping right in. We've all felt it, haven't we? That universal tightening anxiety when we're standing right on the precipice of asking for something. It just feels so deeply personal, like we're putting our own absolute value on the line. But if we're going to master this dynamic, we've got to cut through that emotional fog with incredible precision.
So to conquer this fear, we have to objectively strip away all that emotional baggage we just talked about. Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is how remarkably simple asking becomes when you look at it clinically. It literally just involves getting help, gathering information, or wanting something we don't currently have. And that's it. That is the whole list. Now look, as professionals navigating complex environments day in and day out, we tend to wildly overcomplicate this, don't we? We attach our ego, our status, our entire self-worth to the request. But by deliberately reducing a request down to just a purely mechanical tool, we actually pull off this brilliant psychological trick. We completely remove the profound judgment of our worth. It's no longer this big referendum on whether you're good enough or smart enough or deserving enough. Actually, scratch that. It's more like realizing it's simply a functional, necessary lever you pull to navigate the world around you.
Let's slow things down for a second and really examine these components. Because honestly, categorizing your needs is the very first step to neutralizing that fear. First up, getting help. Think back to a moment when your project was completely stalled out. You literally couldn't proceed without a colleague's specialized technical input. That wasn't a flaw in your competence, right? It was just a missing piece in a giant collaborative puzzle. Second, gathering information. Here, you're simply acquiring missing data to complete a picture in your mind. It's like asking a client to clarify some super ambiguous feedback so you can actually deliver what they want. It's purely investigative. And third, wanting something we don't have. This is your classic, straightforward request for an asset, a raise, a new piece of software, an introduction. This is the core mechanism of ambition. When you isolate your upcoming requests into one of these three functional buckets, they immediately lose their intimidation factor. They aren't threats anymore. They're just basic fundamental human drivers necessary for getting things done. But then, boom, you hit the wall. You put this perfectly logical request out into the world, and the universe just pushes right back. And this brilliantly illustrates the inevitable friction that comes with asking. You've got your thoroughly reasonable request, the help, the specific information, the essential asset, and it collides directly with an abrupt rejection. It's that sudden, jarring no that immediately derails our momentum. It acts as an absolute dead stop to our progress. And let's be real, this collision is exactly the thing that makes the prospect of asking so absolutely terrifying in the first place. We build up all this courage to deploy a logical tool, and smack, we are met with a brick wall. But true mastery of this art form, it doesn't come from avoiding the wall. No way. It comes from leaning right into that reality.
The absolutely most powerful advice to counter this friction really just comes down to 4 little words: practice response to rejection. Just let that sink in for a second. So the crucial point is how that fundamentally reframes a no. It isn't treating rejection as some devastating personal failure or a completely unforeseen catastrophic disaster that proves you never should have opened your mouth in the first place. By explicitly telling us to practice for it, rejection is suddenly treated as a completely predictable, standard outcome of the asking process. It's a known variable in the equation. And if an outcome is a known, predictable variable, guess what? It means we can consciously prepare for it. We can literally map out our reaction before the collision even happens.
Which brings us to the real core concept of mastery here. It isn't just about vaguely, accepting rejection. It's a highly actionable directive. True mastery of this dynamic comes solely from intentionally practicing our response to being told no. So, how do you actually do that?
Well, it means running through the scenario in your head or, hey, even out loud, before that high stakes meeting. What exactly are you going to say when they tell you the budget just isn't there? It means deliberately making small, low stakes requests where you actually expect to know, just to build up a tolerance to the word. Your heart rate stays completely steady because the worst case scenario is already a rehearsed script. Sure, it implies that the first time you get rejected, yeah, it might sting, and you might stumble over your words a bit. But the 10th time? The 50th time? By anticipating the rejection, accepting it as a natural mathematical probability of gathering information or getting help, and actively practicing your emotional and tactical pivot, you completely disarm the fear. You literally neutralize the threat of the word entirely.
We've distilled a tremendous amount of insight today about the mechanics of human interaction. But as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final, absolutely vital question. What will you ask for today? And are you ready for the no? Seriously, don't let this just be passive theory that you listen to and then immediately forget about. I challenge you right now. Identify something you genuinely need today, be it help, information, or an asset you don't yet have, and actually go ask for it. And when you do, be fully prepared to deploy your practice response to rejection. Expect the pushback, embrace the friction,